took Nolan Schanuel 40 days since he got drafted to be called up to the major leagues, which is one of the fastest that we've seen in a long time. So it got me thinking about who are some of the other players who have been called up extremely quickly to Major League Baseball in the last 20 years. Because if we open this up all time, they were just pulling out random dudes in the 70s and being like, you're playing now. But that's where baseball's different than other sports. It takes time for a lot of your draft picks to actually make it to the majors. So in today's video, I'm going to be going over the 10 quickest MLB call-ups of the last 20 years in Major League Baseball and seeing how these guys panned out. Shocker, the Angels pop up on here a lot. Let's get it started. Getting to start off at number 10, Mike Leake, who spent 306 days between draft date and MLB debut. Mike Leake is one of the rare players in Major League Baseball history that did not spend or play a single game in minor league baseball. That's right, he was drafted in the first round in 2009, 8th overall by the Cincinnati Reds out of Arizona State, and while he didn't make his debut till the next year, he did not play a minor league game in between those days. Leake was drafted on June 9th, 2009 and debuted the next year on April 11th, 2010. And Mike Leake had a pretty good major league career, finished with a 105-98 record, a 4.05 ERA with a whip at 1.289. Leake was definitely more of a pitch to contact kind of guy. He was a decent hitter too, hitting 6 home runs, 18 doubles in his career. And while he was never the best pitcher on his staff, Mike Leake was always solid, winning a Gold Glove as well for his athleticism defensively in 2019. In his 10-year career, Mike Leake threw 1,829 innings, which is an average of 182 innings a season, which is really good over a 10-year stretch. Mike Leake may have never been that ace that you would expect from a top 10 pick in the draft, but he still had an extremely successful career. You're going to notice a theme here. The Los Angeles Angels extremely aggressive with their draft picks, because next up is Chase Silseth, who spent 304 days between draft date and MLB debut. Silseth was drafted in the 11th round of the 2021 MLB draft out of University of Arizona, and he made his debut on May 13th, 2022 last season. Silseth has actually looked pretty good at times this year for the Angels at the major league level, striking out more batters than we've seen, and looks like he might have a pretty decent MLB career in front of him. So far in 20 appearances, 12 starts, 70 innings, Silseth has a 4.63 ERA with a whip at 1.357, striking out about 23% of the batters he's faced, walking around 10. For an 11th round pick to be one of the first guys out of his class to make his major league debut is quite an accomplishment for Chase Silseth, and it looks like the Angels might have known. He's been very good, especially this past season. Silseth has gone back down to the minor league level. It's not like he got called up and never went back, but still to this day, he's only thrown 130 innings in the minor leagues, making his call up extremely fast. Little blast from the past here, spending only 303 days between draft date and MLB debut, Houston Street. Houston Street was drafted in the first round, 40th overall of the 2004 MLB draft by the Oakland A's out of University of Texas, and you probably remember Houston Street as one of the best relievers in the late 2000s, early 2010s. Over his 13-year career, Houston Street finished with 324 saves, 680 innings pitched with a 2.95 ERA, a whip at 1.066, and even a FIP at 3.33. He was a very solid reliever throughout his career, some of that time having been spent in Colorado, which we know is impossible to pitch in. Houston Street most notably won the Rookie of the Year in 2005 when he got 23 saves in 67 games for the Oakland A's, and as we mentioned, he spent just over 300 days between draft date and MLB debut. He only threw 45 innings total in the minor leagues. Houston Street, an extremely underrated reliever of the last 20 years, had a very good career and was a pretty nasty closer. Here they are again. Next up, we've got another Angels draft pick that got called up super quick. You know him well, Zach Neto, first round pick of the 2022 MLB draft out of Campbell. Neto only spent 272 days between his draft date and his major league debut, as he debuted on April 15th, 2023 this season. Neto was one of my favorite prospects coming out of the draft last year. Loved how well he played at Campbell. He's a super fun player, and the Angels are clearly better when he's on the field than when he's not. So far in his rookie season, 67 games, 8 homers, 14 doubles, 30 RBIs, hitting .241 with a .315 on base, .411 slugging, and a .725 OPS, while also playing pretty solid defense at the position. While Neto's not walking much at the major league level, he's also not striking out at all with a 21.4% K rate and a 5% walk rate. Now, I thought Neto was going to be a player that was going to be very, very good at the major league level, but I didn't think he would ascend through the minor leagues this quickly. We mentioned 272 days. He's only played 44 games at the minor league level. He has now played more at the majors than the minors, putting him in a rare group of people who have been able to do this in a short period of time. So while the Angels look a little crazy sometimes being this aggressive with their prospects, it's worked out thus far. Zach Neto being another one of those guys. Now's when it starts getting crazy, because we're talking around the 100-day mark here. At only 116 days between draft date and major league debut, we've got Xavier Nady. Nady was a second-round pick in the 2000 MLB draft by the San Diego Padres out of University of California, which makes it even crazier that he was able to come up just a few months later to major leagues. Now, he did only play in one game, and he got one plate appearance on the last day of the season where he did get a hit as a 21-year-old who also got drafted that season. What's crazy is Nady would spend the next 2 full full seasons in minor league baseball before getting a shot at the major league level again, to where he did have some great success. 26 home runs in A-ball with 38 doubles, 23 the next season between high A and triple A, eventually getting the call up again with the Padres in 2003. Xavier Nady always has a special place in my heart. Former Met, played so well for them, and while his major league career didn't end up being one of the greatest of all time, it was for sure a memorable one if you were a baseball fan during the mid to late 2000s, because Nady put up some great years, like a 25, 37, 97 season between the Pittsburgh Pirates and New York Yankees in 2008, or even that crazy hot start he had with the Mets in the first half of 2006. Being drafted and called up in the same year is always crazy, but in the case of Xavier Nady, to then spend the next 2 years in the minors, kind of shocking. It only took 100 days for this next player to be called up to the major leagues after being drafted, and that's going to be Garrett Crochet of the Chicago White Sox. Now, you probably remember Crochet very well. He's currently the last major league player to not spend a day in the minor leagues at all before making his major league debut, because he was drafted in that 2020 season where there were no minor leagues. Crochet drafted in the first round, 11th overall by the White Sox on June 10th, 2020, making his debut on September 18th, 2020 that same season. Garrett Crochet has had some injury issues since being called up. He underwent Tommy John early 2022, missing the entire season, and after making a few appearances this season, he went back on the IL with some shoulder inflammation and has not pitched since. But Crochet has some absolutely disgusting lefty stuff, reminded a lot of people of Chris Sale because he's a big lefty, drafted by the White Sox. So far in 69 games, nice, 2.69 ERA, double nice, in 70 1/3 innings, with a 1.322 whip, striking out 27% of the batters he's faced, walking 12.5%. He's a fireballer. He's got electric stuff out of the University of Tennessee, and he is one of the quickest guys to ever get called up in the last 20 years, honestly, in Major League history. So I'll admit it, this next name I've never heard of in my life. Paco Rodriguez, second round pick of the Los Angeles Dodgers in 2012, only spent 96 days in the minor leagues before getting called up to the majors. Rodriguez was drafted June 5th, 2012, and got the call up on September 9th that same season, where he actually had a pretty good stretch, 11 games for the Dodgers, a 1.35 ERA, and a whip at 1.050. Now you might be wondering, Paco Rodriguez, what happened to him after that? Honestly, not much. He is currently out of baseball, hasn't played a professional baseball game according to Baseball Reference since 2019, and he hasn't thrown a pitch at the major league level since 2015. This is a guy who also, by the way, has only kind of been successful. Listen to these numbers: 124 appearances, 85 1/3 innings pitched, 2.53 ERA with a whip under 1 at .996 and a FIP at 2.98. He was definitely a loogie, a left-handed reliever to get out those left-handed hitters, so when the rules changed, it affected him a little bit more. At the end of the 2015 season, Paco Rodriguez did receive Tommy John surgery and has pretty much never been the same since. Paco Rodriguez was also involved in a pretty big trade that might sound familiar to you guys back in 2015, where he was traded to the Atlanta Braves in a 3-team trade, where the Braves sent Bronson Arroyo, Luis Avilan, Jim Johnson, Jose Peraza, and Alex Wood to the Dodgers. The Dodgers sent Zachary Bird, Hector Oliveira to the Braves. The Dodgers also sent Victor Araujo, Kevin Guzman, Jeff Brigham to the Miami Marlins, and the Marlins sent Matt Latos, Mike Morse to the Los Angeles Dodgers. Crazy trade, but that was the last time we saw Paco Rodriguez pitch, which is pretty sad because it looks like he was pretty good. For the next player that spent a very short time between draft date and MLB debut, we've got left-handed pitcher Brandon Finnegan. Brandon Finnegan was drafted on June 5th, 2014 in the first round, 17th overall by the Kansas City Royals out of TCU. He later made his debut that season on September 6th, 2014, and ended up having a decent rookie campaign. But what made Brandon Finnegan extremely interesting, not only that he spent 93 days between draft date and debut, is that Brandon Finnegan eventually ended up pitching in the World Series that season, becoming the first player ever to play in a College World Series and MLB World Series in the same year. And I remember that was like the big stat that they kept flashing on the screen whenever he'd come into the game. It's a very cool stat, honestly. Finnegan's major league career did kind of take a turn after that. He was used in relief again in 2015, eventually being traded to the Cincinnati Reds, where they tried to convert him into a starter. 2016 made 31 starts, 172 innings pitched with a 3.98 ERA and a whip at 1.36. But Finnegan has not pitched in the majors again since 2018. And according to Baseball Reference, while he is not in affiliated minor league baseball, last seen with the Chicago White Sox last season, he is currently pitching for the Kansas City Monarchs, an independent baseball team in the American Association. Another fun fact about Brandon Finnegan, he's now my new enemy because he is the reason why Johnny Cueto became a Kansas City Royal, who then proceeded to have a great postseason and be one of the reasons why the Mets lost the World Series. So Brandon Finnegan, cool story, but I hate you for bringing the Royals Johnny Cueto. Finally, we got another hitter. Spending only 86 days between draft date and major league debut, Ryan Zimmerman, third baseman of the Washington Nationals. Ryan Zimmerman was the 4th overall pick in the 2005 MLB draft at a University of Virginia by the Nationals. Local kid, Mr. National himself, criminally underrated career, and what it could have been had it not been for some injuries at points. It makes a lot of sense why Ryan Zimmerman didn't spend a lot of time in the minors. It only took Ryan Zimmerman 67 minor league games, a total of 86 total days before getting his shot at the major league level, because, I mean, he was absolutely dominant in those 67 games in the minors at AA basically. 11 homers, 22 doubles, 38 RBIs, and a 941 OPS. Nationals gave him the call up, and he basically never went back. Zimmerman ended up having a 16-year career in which he had 284 home runs, just under 2,000 hits at 1846, over 1,000 RBIs, hitting 277 with a 341 on base, 475 slugging, and 816 OPS. You could put Zimmerman in the Hall of Very Good Players because he finished his career with a 40.1 WAR. Injuries in his career ended up moving him around the field, moving from third base to first base eventually, but let me tell you, he was a phenomenal third baseman in his prime. And even as a Mets fan, you gotta appreciate what Ryan Zimmerman was able to do throughout his career, especially for that Washington Nationals team, when a lot of those years in the beginning, they were absolutely horrible. For the penultimate player in today's video, spending only 60 days in the minors between draft date and major league debut, I mentioned him earlier, first round pick of the Chicago White Sox back in 2010, Chris Sale. Yes, Chris Sale only spent 60 days between draft date and major league debut, 13th overall pick by the White Sox out of Florida Gulf Coast in 2010. And I mean, you know the Chris Sale story. From 2012 to 2018, Chris Sale was simply one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball. Absolutely disgusting. You're talking about a guy who averaged during this time 200 innings a year, over 200 strikeouts a season, an ERA at 2.91, a whip at .025. Whatever numbers you want to look at, however you want to slice it, Chris Sale was absolutely dominant, finishing inside the top 6 of the Cy Young voting every single year from 2012 to 2018. Now, of course, injuries and other stuff have kind of made his career a little bit more difficult than it should have been. Since 2019, Chris Sale has only thrown 263 innings, and his success has been a little bit all over the place. But there is no doubt that he was one of the most dominant pitchers of the 2010s era. And say what you want about the White Sox organization, but they were extremely on the money picking Chris Sale, because that prime that he had, especially with their team, was phenomenal. Extremely dominant left-handed pitcher with crazy good stuff. I mean, even still, he has a K rate for his career at 30.5% with a walk rate under 6. Chris Sale is disgusting. Which leads us to the last and final player in today's video. The reason why I wanted to make this, the quickest call-up in Major League Baseball in the last 20 years, Nolan Schanuel of the Los Angeles Angels. Schanuel has only spent 40 days between draft date and Major League debut. 11th overall pick in the first round of the 2023 MLB draft. This season, he's already up. He hit leadoff in his first game. He's got his first hit. I mean, it's a pretty crazy story. There's not much to talk about with Schanuel. I mean, he was great in college at Florida Atlantic University. He was great in the minors in the 21 games that he played there. A 370 average with a 510 on base, 493 slugging, and an OPS over 1,000. If there's anything to talk about, is that there has been a lack of power shown this far in his career, but he's only played 22 professional baseball games. I mentioned how the Angels have been extremely aggressive with their draft picks recently. I basically did the top 10 for this video. Some other guys that they were quick to call up. Michael Roth, a University of South Carolina Gamecock back from the 2012 draft. Ben Joyce back in 2022. And even this season, Victor Medeiros spent less than a year since the draft that he was called up. The Angels have been aggressive. They were aggressive with Schanuel. Let's see if it pays off. So there they are, the quickest call-ups in Major League Baseball for the last 20 years. Which one do you think has been the most successful? Let me know in the comment section below, as well as drop a like on the video if you did enjoy it, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any of the content coming at you. Follow me on all my social media at GiraffeNeckMarc. Links are in description. And that's where I'll wrap it up, guys. You know the drill from here on out. YouTube recommends you watch this video right here, and this is my most recent upload. So click through those if you have not yet seen them. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you all tomorrow for another video. Bye.